Genesis chapter 3 verse 15 is often called the Proto-Evangelium. It is considered by theologians the first prophecy of Christ in the Bible. Proto meaning first, like in prototype. Evangelium meaning gospel, like the word evangelize. This is seen as the first evangelization towards humanity. So what's it say? First we gotta get a little bit of context. God created the Garden of Eden. He put man and woman in the garden, told them that they could eat any fruit they wanted, except one specific fruit, that if they ate from that, then they would die. Now, Satan came in the form of a serpent, tempted the woman, caused her to eat from the fruit, she took it to her husband, caused him to eat from the fruit. So then God came to visit them in the Garden of Eden, and they passed the blame back down from man to woman to snake. Upon this, God then pronounces judgment on the man, the woman, and the serpent. And this is the punishment that he gives to the serpent. It says in verse 15, "And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He will crush you on the head, and you will strike his heel." Okay, so what's this have to do with Christ? It is claimed by many theologians that on the cross, the serpent Satan, sin, death, crushed Jesus. Now, although it was a fatal crushing, it wasn't ultimately fatal because Jesus rose from the grave. However, by rising from the grave, Jesus then did crush death itself and won the victory of heaven over Satan and death. So the very act that bruised Jesus also crushed Satan entirely. It is furthermore noted that throughout the Bible, people are known as the seed of their father. This language of calling this man who would crush the serpent of death as the seed of woman is kind of odd. Based off biblical context, it should have been the seed of man and not the seed of woman. Of course, there are thematic reasons in the narrative of Genesis of why it would have been Eve and not Adam, but many theologians point out the fact that Jesus was not the seed of a man. He was the seed of a virgin woman who was immaculately conceived. Jesus had no biological earthly father, and therefore he is the seed of woman, not the seed of man, who crushed the serpent of death on the cross as his own heel was bruised. Heel and head being metaphorical, of course. But is this really the first prophecy of Christ? I found an even earlier reference to Christ on the cross, and that comes in Genesis 2, verse 23. And this happens just after Adam first meets Eve. "The man said, 'This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, for she was taken out of man.'" What does this have to do with Christ? Alright, we need to get into some Hebrew context, because this phrase is extremely common in the ancient Hebrew culture. Not this phrase exactly, but serves as a type of phrase. Bone of my bones. There are many times throughout the Bible that uses the phrase blank of blank. And every time it does that, it is invoking a very strong sense. It can be seen when we refer to God as the King of Kings or the Lord of Lords. It can be seen in Ecclesiastes when it says vanity of vanities. It can be seen in the book of Song of Solomon, which the traditional name for it is Song of Songs. And of course, it can be seen in the temple, the Holy of Holies. So what does this term mean? The King of Kings is actually one of the best examples of it, of how we could understand it. You've got these kings who rule over these peasants. And then you've got this king who rules over these kings. So the relationship to the King of Kings is the same as the relationship to the kings to their peasants. The King of Kings make kings look like peasants. A better example could be in our modern phrase, the best of the best. Imagine if you got 100 gamers together and you ranked them and found the 10 best players. Now you've got a category of best. Best invokes a sense of common person. If I were to claim to be the best at something, that would imply that there are many people beneath me. So the very context of best invokes a two-party structure. Best, common, and the best is better than the common. Now if you take those 10 best gamers and you want to find the single sole one best gamer of the entire group, then that would be the best of the best. That person makes the 9 other best people look as common as the 90 other people in comparison to them. Just as those 10 bests are to the common person, so too the best of the best is to those other 9 people. And this is the same context that you've got with King of Kings. Just as kings rule over peasants, so too the King of Kings rules over kings. Just as Lord rules over servants, so too the Lord of Lords makes servants out of the other lords. Okay, so whenever we've got the phrase blank of blank, we've got a 3-party structure. Whatever the relationship is between blank and the category below it that is implied by the existence of blank, so too that relationship is between the blank of blank and blank. Okay, now let's go back to this passage. This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. So what category makes flesh stand out from itself, that flesh of flesh can be compared to? For that, we've got to turn to the book of Job. Now, Job is an interesting book where it follows through a man who is regarded as righteous, and Satan comes to God with a challenge. Says, God, Job is only righteous because you bless him. If you curse him and take everything away from him, then he's going to curse you. So God takes Satan up on this challenge and allows Satan to take whatever he wants from him. So Satan starts out by destroying all of Job's wealth, destroying all of Job's livestock, completely crashing his business, and even in the end, killing his 10 children. At the end of Job chapter 1, Job, this once wealthy and prosperous businessman, is now reduced to nothing more than his immediate surroundings. When that happens, Job goes alone and weeps and mourns for all that he has lost, especially his children. And in this mourning process, he says, naked I've come into this world, naked I will return. God has given and God has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Chapter 2 picks up the story in another scene where Satan goes back to God about the challenge. Verse 3. Then the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job? There is no one like him on the earth. He is a blameless and upright man, a man who fears God and shuns evil, and he still maintains his integrity, though you incited me against him to ruin him without any reason. Satan replies, skin for skin, a man will give all that he has for his own life. But now stretch out your hand and strike his flesh and his bone, and he will surely curse you to your face. Job has lost everything but skin for skin. All of his material things don't matter. You strike his flesh and his bone, that's where it hits personally. All man has, he would trade for his life. So here's the hierarchy. Flesh to our material things. Everything that we have materialistically, we will trade to save our flesh. So when Adam says, this, my wife, is flesh of my flesh, bone of my bones, he's saying, just as a man would give all that he has to save his own life, to save his own skin, to save his own bone, his own flesh, so too he would give all his flesh, all his skin, he would lay down his life to protect his wife. Now, this was before the fall. This was before sin entered into the world. This was before Adam had a context of sin. He was not lying. He was not trying to flatter her. He was not trying to manipulate her or coerce her into anything like sex. He was being more genuine and more sincere than it is possible for a modern man to be, because there was no sin in him at this time. He was being honest when he was making an oath to lay down his life to protect his spouse. And then sin entered into the world. When Eve brought the fruit to him and he ate, he realized what he had done and he hid. He was scared. And when God came and asked him, Adam, where are you? And he's like, I'm hiding. I'm scared. And God's like, did you eat from the tree which I commanded you not to eat? That which I said, the day you eat of it, you will surely die? Adam immediately, to save his own skin, it was her. It was the woman you gave me. It was her fault. Take her, not me. Save me. Take her. Kill her instead. Yo, Adam, didn't you just say that you lay down your life for her? And now you're saying, kill her, save me? Adam broke his vow to his wife. What would it look like if when Eve came with the fruit, if Adam did not take it? And so then when God comes into the garden, Eve would have hidden from God. Adam would have run to God and fallen at his feet. And God would have been like, hey, Adam, where's your wife? And Adam would have been like, she's hiding. Why is she hiding? Has she eaten from the fruit which I commanded her not to eat? The fruit which I said, the day you eat of it, you will surely die? And Adam would have pleaded with God and been like, yes, Lord, she has, but please take me instead. God, don't kill her. Yes, she sinned. She is guilty. Yes, I'm innocent. I've not done anything wrong. But God, take me instead. Save her. Later in the New Testament, Paul compares Jesus to Adam and calls him the second or the final Adam. Whereas Adam failed to fulfill his oath to his wife, Christ succeeded in fulfilling his vow to his bride, the church. In Ephesians 5, starting in verse 25, Paul says, "Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her." Adam's oath to Eve should be thought of as an oath from all men to their wives. The oath that a man should lay down his life to protect his wife. This is God's calling for us as men. Many men fail this oath to their wives. Adam was the first to fail it. Abraham failed it. Isaac likewise failed it. And many other men since then have failed it. All men, such as those who abuse their spouses, those who inflict harsh rule on their wives, fail to live up to this. And so many other men have also failed this vow. But Jesus fulfilled the Adamic vow to his wife, to his bride, the church. And though we sinned and he remained perfect, yet he laid down his life for his bride, just as Adam said that he would, had he not sinned. There's great debate these days whether masculinity is toxic or rather it's what is needed to save our society. According to the biblical narrative, it depends on which Adam we are modeling. If we're modeling the first Adam, then our masculinity is extremely toxic and is everything that's wrong with the world, always throwing other people under the bus to save our own flesh, even those dearest to us like our spouse. What this incredibly broken world needs is the second Adam. We need more men taking up the masculinity of the second Adam, who sacrificed himself to save his bride. While we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. This is the whole of the gospel narrative. If we had manly men who followed the model of the second Adam instead of the model of the first Adam, then yes, what this world needs more than anything is more masculinity. Because this is our calling as men, to lay down our lives for our wives. Anyway guys, thanks for watching, and God bless.